Welcome to the Better Business Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Zelan. Join me week after week as I interview high-level entrepreneurs on their journey to success, both in business and personal development. Each week presents new stories to learn from and new ideas on how to run a better business. Stay updated with all the guests we'll have by subscribing to this podcast.
What were some of the challenges you'd say you encountered growing to where you're at now?
I think we kind of had been this small business, and coming into the Bellevue collection, it was sort of like the adult version of a business. And you have a lot of requirements that we weren't used to having. So, and it's expensive to be there. So you have to be pretty serious about your numbers and making a profit, or you could quickly, be in debt. So I think it's just made us level up and get very serious and intentional about what we're doing. And that's been really good for us.
Do you think that's a wise move for business owners to put themselves in a position where it's maybe just a little bit uncomfortable, like let's say on a lease payment, but then it makes them work harder?
For the right business, yes. I think that something I've learned is that I think you have to be intentional about your growth. Like there's a lot of very exciting opportunities out there. And if you're not intentional about that opportunity, you can quickly sink yourself. So I think if you're really, the type of entrepreneur that is going to do the work and you're going to get in and figure it out, and a little bit of a challenge makes you rise to the occasion, then it's fantastic. Like that's worked really well for us. But I think you have to be careful about it because it can also be overwhelming or be too much. So I do think it's about knowing your limit and being intentional about like the steps that you take towards those limits.
As far as growing your business, are there any strategies that you use that really significantly boosted your business's growth?
One of the simplest things, Austin, I would say is sales calls. And again, just being willing and having the confidence to go make sales calls. There's been various seasons, again, just like I was saying just a minute ago, like if you come into a season of just management, the status quo of your business where you're sort of in neutral and you're just managing the daily operation, you might find that you can lose an account or lose a few accounts where your volume shrinking, and sometimes that can happen quick and come up on you if you're not paying attention, and you'll come into a season where you're like, I got to go get some more customers. I got to go get some more accounts. And I've had those moments. And so one of those things is being willing to go out and knock on doors, make cold calls. And again, in my business in automotive, there's a lot of different, we have dealerships, we have insurance agents, we have a lot of different things that would be automotive related that I can go and call and knock on the door. And what I've found is that usually fairly quickly, if I'm out on the street and I'm making sales calls for my company and I'm out shaking hands and doing that work, I've always been kind of amazed at how quickly I get responsive business coming back. And so kind of again, back to mindsets is you might think it's just too hard to get business, or I could never steal that account from that other competitor. They're just way too locked in and too deep in there, and I could never get it. And we've won some of those. And again, it's just by building those relationships, by being willing to get out there and put the work in, and go after growing the company. So I would say just straight up being intentional about that category and that aspect, because if you're not doing it, you're not going to get the fruits. You're not going to get the results. You can't just have your head buried in the sand and think that business is going to come to you. At least not in my industry. And so, there's the other thing is web and website and some of that to help with that. But just building a relationship in your market, getting your name out there and shaking hands, it's a good thing. I've done other things like doing community events. We do a lot of car show events where we're meeting our customers and we're getting our brand out there, shaking hands. And so building awareness. And I currently have our office manager does a good job on our social media. And so God bless her. She does a great job. That's not what I do. I work on cars, but she's pretty talented at it. So those types of things I think do help. But for me, I've seen just intentionality at saying we can win accounts and we can grow and have more volumes, and now just go get it.
Yeah. And that's actually something that echoes, I'd say, through most of these interviews, is that you need to have that network. And as the business owner, sometimes you just have to be the one that goes out there to the car shows or the community events or the events that you're sponsoring or putting on, to be out there and to grow your business. You spearhead the whole thing from the start. Now, eventually it might get to the point where it runs autonomously, but at the beginning, that's a lot of times that's what it looks like. You can't really build something great by just sitting in your office at home or, in the office and trying to build something from your computer without ever building outside of that office. So that's a very important aspect of it.
So now, as far as it like personal life, like how do you balance business and personal life? Do you have a work-life balance?
Ooh, I would be curious to see how other people answer this question. So I am married and I have twins. They're 4 months old. So do I have the balance? It's pretty all-consuming. My wife also runs a business. She has an events company. So side note, find yourself a partner who can help balance you, not just in a relationship, but also in your business if you run a business. It's someone I am more CEO type vision man, and she is operational 100%, right? She doesn't think about 10 years from now. She thinks about tomorrow, today, and what steps to knock off. So I get to balance that. So in a way, my work-life balance is balanced by the choices I've made by finding the right partner for me, where I can talk about my work and feel like I'm knocking things off my list or solving a problem that I'm having trouble with mentally by just talking to her on a date night kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. And that has helped a lot. With the introduction of the twins, there's something that I was wondering if it was going to actually happen. Paul Graham of Y Combinator was talking about there's nothing that quite focuses and optimizes your time as having children. He made a joke about how I don't recommend you having kids just to optimize your time, but it has to if you want to continue being successful. And I didn't realize how true that was. Before I was like, okay, I have, 12, 14 hours today to knock out these tasks. And there is this, I wouldn't say a sense of urgency. There was a sense of urgency I thought I had back then by knocking these tasks off. But I could stop, go take an hour break, go grab a lunch, grab a bite, and just think about things as I'm walking around town. I live downtown, so I just kind of like to walk around and think things through. Now it's like I have until 3:30 p.m. is when I take over for my wife so she can knock out some work for a couple of hours. And that's my absolute cutoff. There's no leeway on that. And watch the kiddos. And then she comes back and takes over and I finish up my night working. And in knowing that I have that, or at any moment that she's going to need assistance or something. And honestly, we have help as well. I don't make it seem like it's just us. But I like to make sure that in worst case scenario, I'm ready. So categorizing like this time frame, there's no leeway in that. I can't stay up later or do whatever, pull an all-nighter like I used to. This is all I have. Has really forced me to create these very specific buckets of time. Actually, again, our mutual friend who I learned it from, he's like, you really need to be stacking your day with just one type of work, right? As opposed to just knocking out little bits of everything every single day. And I should have known this before and I heard, but I ignored it. But now as with kids, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And that work-life balance I wouldn't say necessarily there. It's more of optimizing my time is what really I've focused on with having my personal life. And and I can think also do what everyone else does who runs a business socially, is just hang out with your business associates. Mm-hmm. Knock out two birds with one stone. And so that would be the answer, is really figuring out like how can I get how do I win in both categories all the time?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, yeah, definitely. And have you been able to achieve work-life balance?
Well, I've struggled this year.
Yeah.
But, this year I'm building a house with my wife. I've got 2 kids, 3 and 2 years old.
Yeah.
Doing World Endurance Championships. I'm doing 8 rounds all around the world. So here we are in Austin. 2 weeks' time I'll be in Fuji. Got a business to run. Yeah, it's been difficult.
Yeah.
But all of that comes down to being open with your team, I think, and saying, this is what I'm doing this year. So understand that at certain times it's going to be difficult. Make sure that when I'm around, that we can cover the things that you've got problems with. And even today, I'm back tomorrow. I land at 11 o'clock. I've really only got 2.5 days in the office before I go to a big event in the UK. Mm-hmm. So my PA, I've seen that she's made sure that everyone books in time with me and that we know what we're doing and anything that's important is dealt with.
Yeah.
And that gives you the opportunity then to single out the days and the weekends and the weeks where you can go and do stuff with the family, or if you're focusing on this project or that project, and just realizing that you can't do it all.
Yeah.
But if you do little bits and pieces, and I did mechanical engineering at university, which I've always said to people, the most useful thing about it is that you had so much to do. So I had the equivalent of, what we have in England, A levels, which is as you finish school when you go to university, usually a university course is like 2 or 3 A levels. Felt like mechanical engineering was 10 A levels. It was so much work, but it helped me prioritize. So if I was thrown now in the workplace, if I'm thrown lots of different things that I need to deal with and juggle, I know which one I have to focus on the most. I know which ones I need to do a little bit on at a time and which ones I can push to one side, but obviously make sure I get back to them at some point. I see a lot of other people in my business and even my family who don't have that skill set, who will be thrown a problem and it's all they can think about. They can't do anything else. That's a skill that I think, if there's a way to teach that to people, is really important. That you naturally, the traditional listing of jobs to do is such an important thing to do.
Yeah.
I talked about being able to remember a car that someone said they wanted 4 weeks later.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a job that someone's asked you to do and you think, I can't do that now, but I'm going to do it next week, you've got to write it down.
Yeah.
Okay, today it's digitally, but you've got to do it. You've got to have listing in place. You've got to have prioritization. And sometimes you've got to be honest with people when they ask you to do something. You've got to turn around and say, honestly, we can't do that for 2 weeks, but we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
And actually, with my team, one of the other things that I think I often say that's really valuable and important is no news is good news. So, for example, we've got a car in the workshop. It's got a broken front lift, and that part is not available. Whilst you're waiting for it, you need to go back to the client every week and say, just to let you know, we've chased the supplier, we're waiting for it. If the supplier comes back and says it's going to be another 2 weeks, tell the client. So often, I've had guys say to me, oh, we don't have any news. I say, well, tell the client that, because that's news.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that you don't have news is news.
Yeah.
That communication to a client makes them feel like, or makes them know that you're thinking about them and that their car is on your list.
Yeah.
It's not being ignored.
Yeah,
no one likes to be ignored.
Yeah.
And none of these tasks like to be ignored. So even if it's a little bit, and you update people and whoever it may be, and whatever the task may be, it's so important just to do a little bit on everything when you can. And if you can't touch it for a few weeks, tell someone. And when that time period is up, have some mechanism in place that you go back to it and do that little bit, or tell them, I'm really sorry, it's going to be another week.
Yeah.
Don't just ignore people.
Now, what role would you say culture plays in the operations of your business?
I think culture is really, really important. Like, this is something that I have just realized. It's kind of funny because early on, you nod your head, be like, yeah, of course, but you don't really understand. Now I understand. It's just such an integral part of what we do, because now we've gotten a lot more clear on what is our mission, what are our core values, and then making decisions based on that and aligning the team based on that. And the people that align with our core values, like, they allow us as a team to be far more effective and hit our goals and our targets because we're all very cohesive. And so when I had some exceptions in a big area, especially with the type of company that, that I run and a lot of people in like kind of the consulting or educational or high ticket space, they have, sales teams. And what I found was that a lot of our sales team at one point was not fully culture fits. Again, good people. It's not, it's like there's a difference between, some people think that culture fit means, are they a good person or not? Like, no, that's not it. No, it's just, do they fit with our culture? Do they share the same values? You can have different values and say, hey, this is a great person, but do they have the same values that we have? And so that's what we see. And what I noticed at one point, a lot of our sales team didn't fully align with that. And it was effective, but there was something that was holding us back. There was conflicts, there was different things. And so we ended up, making some changes and, letting some people go and moving things around. And then it's gotten so much more cohesive as a team by not having any exceptions. Because at one point I was like, all right, everybody is a core value. First, it was not really thinking about culture and core value fits. Then it was like, okay, all of our employees, and our team, except for the sales team, they're all core value fits. So the sales team, you know how it is. Like, but then eventually it's like, no, everybody's got to be a core value fit, got to be aligned, and got to be, 100% on the exact same, same wavelength. And so we've got our mission. Our mission is to empower businesses to amplify their impact. and create a positive ripple effect on the world. And that's what we're doing. Like, we believe that it's not just about YouTube ads, not just about marketing. If we go and help somebody that's going and helping others, that's also why we love working with coaching, consulting, and course businesses. If I go and help somebody who's helping other people get in front of more of the people that they can help, we're creating a positive ripple effect. Through just one person, we can impact thousands and thousands of people. And that gets me excited. That gets our entire team excited. We're all aligned on that like ripple effect of impact. And we're talking about it. We enroll a new client. We're like, yes, like, you know, like especially when they have like this big area where they can really create this impact. You know, one of our clients, Jared, he goes and helps like local businesses with their SEO and their Google review profile. And you know, and he came to us and he was facing some challenges, but also a lot of his businesses were facing challenges after the aftermath of COVID and all that stuff. And so basically he, you know, he essentially was saying like, you know, I need a way to reach these people to impact more people. We helped him with YouTube ads. And now he's gone out, he's worked with hundreds of these local businesses. He's told us stories of those businesses that would have shut down if he hadn't actually gotten in front of them, because their Google review profile makes or breaks a business. And so those are people that will never meet those business owners, but through helping Jared with his ads, getting in front of them, it, you know, potentially saved businesses and also just positively impacted those communities. And so that is like the alignment that we want to have with our team and with our cultures. That's the type of thing we're going for.
Now, when it comes to company culture, what role does company culture play in your company? And how have you used that to continue growing your business?
I have a good friend, Darius Mirshahzadeh, who wrote a book called The Core Value Equation. And when I first met him, the book is pink and it has an elephant on it. And when I first met him, I was like, oh God, this fluffy motherfucker. I was like, I'm never going to like him. Because I just thought it was going to be this woo-woo crazy thing that was focused on, you know, the soft, fluffy, ethereal parts of business. Very quickly, I found out that Darius is into core values because it produces ROI, and very tactical and systemic in his approach. And I very much believe that. Most of my job as the CEO is to interview and focus on culture. And then I like all the other stuff. I like the system, sales, et cetera. And I'm a relationship person, so that's a big part of my life. But I'm interviewing all the time. And what I say most consistently in interviews across the board is my objective is to hire and fire based on values and KPIs. KPIs are cut and dry. Either you're performing or you're not. In core values, my job is not to try to get people to adopt the values that we have. My job is to find the people that already have the values that we have internally, because I know they're going to fit in well. Mm-hmm. It is mission critical for my sanity and my well-being to have people on the team that are rowing in the same direction and operate through the same set of values.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you don't have to retrain people. And actually I've seen companies do like sort of like a hiring strategy where they specifically emphasize for their current employees, which are cultural fits, to refer people, and they incentivize them to do so because they know that it's likely that these people's friends are pretty similar to them. They probably have a pretty similar core value structure. And so they're going to fit in much more easily than just finding somebody randomly who you're like, okay, well, I hope this person fits our values because they're really good and I really want to hire them. So it's a totally different scenario right there.